Now let's go ahead and let's finish off this ceiling lamp here for the dining area. Okay. All right, we can see in the reference image, and let me bring up this other reference image over here, the free floating window. You can see what we need to create. We need to basically create the chains up here, and this little piece here that kind of hooks up to the chain and completes that area right there. So let's go ahead and see about getting that done. The way I'm going to do this is actually pretty simple. I'm going to take the top polygons of this object up here, and I'm going to extrude them up. Pull them up about here will work out pretty good. Okay. I'll turn off my NURBS toggle. Take these two edge loops right there, and I'm going to increase the crease parameter just to make them nice and sharp. I'm going to go into a top view here. Go to polygon mode. I'm going to select this vertex that's up here, and I'm going to use the Chamfer Tool real quick on that guy. I'm going to chamfer to about this much. Looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to take those two polygons and the polygons on the opposite side. You can see the polygons there are not exactly flattened. So let me take all the vertices that are up here, turn off ignore backfacing, take all those guys, go to a line, I'll align that in the Z. I'm going to go back to polygon mode, take these guys and extrude them up. And the amount that I want to take them up is, I actually had it pretty good, so about right there is pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to select those two edges there, grab the rings, connect this stuff, go back to world mode, and move this stuff up to about right here is pretty good. Then I'm going to go back to polygon mode, take the polygons on the opposite sides there, and I'm going to go ahead and use the bridge tool to bridge that stuff together. Okay, then I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to select that edge up there, grab its ring. I'm going to go to connect. Connect that thing maybe 2 times and use the pinch parameter to push that out to the ends. Select that edge and that edge, grab those rings as well. Connect that. 2 segments, pinch it all the way to the edges, pretty good. So we end up with something like this, which is a little bit too sharp. I don't like that too much. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my mind here. I'm going to take those 2 edges there, grab those loops, control backspace to get rid of that. And you know what? I'm not going to fiddle around with it too much. I'm just going to leave it alone. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front view. I'm going to create a box. Something like that. Okay, let me take that vertex there. I'm going to snap it to this vertex is fine right there. Take snapping off. Move that to about right there. Just going to go ahead and scale this stuff down. Let me go to the front view here. Scale this back up. Try to match up the picture a little bit. Okay. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my perspective viewpoint. And I'm going to convert this thing to an editable poly. Take this polygon over here. Extrude that out. I'm going to pull it to about right here and give it some rotation. Take all of those edges right there. I'm going to connect them 1 time. Move the connection to about right here will work out pretty good. Okay, I'm going to take that polygon right there, extrude that guy out. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to align this thing in the z-axis, and that didn't work out too well. So let me try the Y, and Y looks like it's going to work out fine. Okay, so I'll bring that down and push it into the mesh a little bit like so. Now the entire object's a little bit too thick, so I'm going to take the whole thing and scale it down a little bit like so. What I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to take the pivot point and center it to the middle of the object. That way it just scales to the middle. So something like that's going to work out just fine. Okay, so I'll go back to this view here, take these edges, and I'm going to make a connection in the middle. Move it to about right there is pretty good. Then I'm going to chamfer that. I'm going to give it a good amount, give it a few segments. Something like that. I'm going to hit OK. And because I pushed the segments all the way to the edges, I need to take all the vertices, go to the weld options, put this at 0, and you'll notice that before it had 44 vertices, now it has 37. So all the hidden vertices were basically we got rid of them, which is good. I'm going to take this edge here, grab its loop. Maybe I'll chamfer that all the way. 5 segments looks pretty good. Again, I have to take all the vertices and do the same thing, weld that. Hit OK. We'll take these vertices here and move them back a little bit like so. Okay, this object is going to be viewed from far away, so it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. So I'm going to leave it alone like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to symmetrize this guy over. So I'm going to take that polygon there and delete that. Now the vertex, or the pivot point I should say, is in the wrong place. So I'm going to go ahead and move it. Let me take this guy here. Turn off NURBS toggle, go back to this guy, grab my pivot point. I'm going to snap it to say that vertex right there is pretty good. So it's right in the middle. I'm going to go to mesh editing over here. Take my symmetry modifier. And that'll pretty much do it. The default options worked out pretty good. So I'm going to collapse that. Don't need this loop here in the middle, so I'm going to take that loop, control backspace to get rid of it. Render this from a distance. It doesn't look too bad. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is I need to create the chain that we saw in the reference image. We can see here this thing kind of hangs from the ceiling by sort of this link of chains. So let's go ahead and create that. And the way I'm going to do that's actually pretty easy. I'm going to create myself a box out here. Okay, I'm going to go to the front view. Grab this box, move it over here, and I'm going to try to use the image here to roughly place this where it needs to be placed, get kind of the width and the height here, the general kind of parameters or shape to it, the volume. It's I'm going to lower the length here so it's a little bit thinner, something like that. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this thing to an editable poly. I'm going to select the front and back polygons. I'm going to inset them. About this much is fine. Maybe a little bit less, something like that is okay. I'm going to go up here to my graphite modeling tools and bridge those polygons so we end up with something like that. If I turn on NURBS toggle, you can see what we end up with. So let me come over here to my subdivision surfaces over here. Increase the iterations a couple of times so we end up with something like this. Now it doesn't look like the chain too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the edges here that run across the middle. Now I'm going to make one connection. Now we have something that looks more like a chain. It's a little bit too thick, so I'll thin it out a little bit. And there we go. So that's going to work out just fine. If you think that it's a little bit too thin, you can always take the middle polygons and just scale them in a little bit just to make the chain a little bit thicker so it looks more like the image. I'm going to move this down to about right here. And now I'm going to try to get this thing to play nice. And just using my eyes, I'm going to try to place it something like that. Okay. Now what we can do is use the array tool to create ourselves a whole bunch of chains that go up and connect this. Now the amount of chains that we need, we're not certain at this point in time, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the tools here, go to array. I'm going to reset all parameters. I'm going to leave it on instance. Instance is fine. We could use copy, but I'm just going to go ahead and use instance for the moment. And for the count, I'll go with about 20. Probably need a lot more than 20, but I'm going to go with 20 at the moment, just for now. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the incremental parameters over here, the Z. To move this thing, I'm going to turn on preview as well so I can actually see it. I'm going to move it to about right here. Now I need it to rotate, obviously, so what I'm going to do is down here under the rotation, I'm going to go to the right over here, and I'm going to rotate this in the Z-axis. And I can rotate it here in the view to as much as I need to, so something like this. And I'm also going to go back and move this a little bit to about right here, so it looks like they're, connected or touching each other. And I'll hit OK, say I'm happy with that. And the neat thing is that the rotation kind of gave it a little bit of twist. If this keeps going higher and higher, you'll notice that it has a bit of a twist to it. So there's our chains for our lamp. Okay, if we need more chains, we can create more chains. We're not going to worry about that at the moment. I'm going to say I'm finished with this right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all of these objects here and create a container. So I'll go to Tools, Containers, Create Container from Selection. And I'm going to rename the container to, I'll call it Ceiling Lamp. Okay. I'm going to make sure that Allow Edit in Place is turned on. I'm going to go to Save. And we're going to save this out as Ceiling_Lamp. Okay. So there's our ceiling lamp. It's exported out. Just going to save my work right there, and we're finished with this thing. We can move on to the next modeling task at hand.